Now Margo Robbins, Keechneck, co-founder and executive director of the Cultural Fire Management Council. We are on the Upper Yurok Reservation along the Klamath River. So Indigenous people have been using fire for tens of thousands of years. As Yurok people who have never been displaced from our land, fire was given to us by the pre-human race of spirit beings, and we have been using it ever since. Good fire has come into play in the fire world as an easy way for people to understand that not all fires are bad. The reality of it is that not even all wildfires are bad. About 60% of the area burned from wildfires produces good results on the land. But in general, people refer to good fire as the purposeful use of fire and bad fire as wildfire. The difference between a cultural burn and a prescribed fire is who is doing it and what the requirements are. A cultural burn is done by Indigenous people from the place that is being burned. They're using their place-based knowledge to guide the hows and whens of burning. That would include the lay of the land, the weather factors like the wind direction and things like that. So the purpose of the burn is to increase culturally important species, to restore the land back to a healthy, functioning ecosystem. It can be done with just the average person can do a cultural burn. We have family burns where people from toddlers to elders are burning together. It does not require any special permits or written burn plans. There is another type of cultural burn that we call a prescribed burn with cultural objectives. And so for that, we would actually have a burn plan, which defines the parameters under which we're going to burn, how hot the day can be, how hard the wind can blow, how dry or wet the people call them fuels, but it is the dead woody debris on the ground. So it is still led by the Indigenous people from that area, still guided by their place-based knowledge, but there's a formal burn plan. The objective is the same as the other kind of cultural burn, and that is to increase access and availability of culturally important species. A prescribed burn is what the agency folks do. It has the written burn plan. It is done by qualified firefighters, and usually the objective is to reduce hazardous fuels, reduce the risk of wildfire. A prescribed burn is helpful in many ways. It reduces the amount of vegetation on the land, so that reduces the risk of the spread of wildfire and also the intensity. When there's less vegetation on the land, the vegetation that remains does not suck up as much water. If you think about it like a glass of water with 4 straws versus a glass of water with 20 straws. So when the vegetation grows unchecked, lots and lots of trees, lots and lots of brush, it's all sucking up that water. So prescribed fire does increase the water table, and it is a wildfire prevention. A byproduct is availability of culturally important species. The agencies that are doing the fire may very well not know what those species are, but as Native people we do, and we will go in and gather things. Sometimes the agencies will work together with tribal folks and do burns guided by their knowledge and direction, so that they actually are targeting some cultural species. Our culture is fire dependent. Our basket weaving materials, some of them require fire in order to reproduce new growth, which is what we need for the hazel and also for the bear grass, the overlay. There are other materials that, although they are not dependent on fire, they greatly benefit from fire. So some of the color overlays in our baskets are ferns that grow in the creek. And you might think, well, what's that have to do to fire? That's have to do with fire. That's water. But in the absence of fire, the wet places become drier and drier because there's more vegetation sucking water away from those. Also, our traditional food and medicine plants, in the absence of fire, the trees will become so numerous that the canopy will close and no sun will reach the ground. And so those understory plants will slowly die out. And tree species like fir trees, which are native to here, they will just take over the landscape. So fire is a mechanism to keep the different plant types in balance, to keep the prairies so that the fir trees don't encroach on them. It also fertilizes the soil, the ash and the charcoal that works its way down into the soil. The charcoal also purifies the water. So fire affects all aspects of living. It affects the soil, the water, the plants, the animals. And one of the ways it affects the animals is it creates healthy habitat for them. When the land is so overgrown with vegetation, the larger animals can't move around in there. And there's no young, nutritious food. When you go in and use fire to reduce that amount of vegetation, what grows back is really nutritious new growth that animals like the deer or the elk really like. And so it does definitely impact the animals as well. It also impacts the air, because in the absence of the purposeful use of fire, the wildfires will continue to get bigger and bigger and produce more and more highly toxic smoke. Cultural and prescribed fire is reducing the spread and intensity of wildfire and producing only a minimal amount of smoke that's only from just wood, not all the terrible plastics and carcinogens that a wildfire might burn up. Our landscapes evolved with fire and need fire to be healthy. So when we talk about people preparing for wildfire, there are several factors. One is that fire needs to be returned to the hands of the people. We need to offer lots of opportunities for the average person to learn how to use fire to safeguard their homes and take care of their land. It should not be something that only agencies, highly trained, 10 plus years of working in the fire industry before you can burn. It should not be that way. It wasn't that way in the past, and it doesn't need to be that way now. Some states, the average person does have the right to burn. Youth are the key to preserving fire practices. those of us who started this push to reclaim our right to use fire on the land, this is just the very beginning. You know, there's millions and millions and millions of acres that need to be treated with fire, and that's not going to happen in our lifetime. So it's critically important for youth to learn about the benefits of fire and how to burn safely, and the intricacies of burning during certain times of the year with certain environmental cues to get the best results for the land, the plants, the animals, and the people.